When 28-year-old Evelyn Mercer stepped off the train in Copper Ridge, Colorado, she knew the rancher waiting for her expected someone else. Someone beautiful. Someone wanted. Her Boston family had sent her west as a joke, the plain, forgotten daughter shipped to a frontier stranger instead of her stunning half-sister. They expected humiliation, rejection, a telegram begging to come home. But Evelyn had spent a lifetime being the family disappointment, and she was done running from their cruelty. If this rough Colorado rancher wanted to send her back, he'd have to look her in the eye first. Like and comment with your city, so I can see how far this story travels. The Boston rain came down cold that March morning in 1875, hammering the cobblestones outside the Mercer mansion like it had a personal grudge. Evelyn stood at the second-floor window watching water pool in the street below, her hands folded against the chill that crept through the glass. Behind her, the bedroom door opened without a knock. "Still staring at nothing, I see." Evelyn didn't turn. She recognized her stepmother's voice, sharp as broken china, twice as cutting. "I was watching the rain, Constance." How perfectly dull. Constance crossed the room, her silk skirts rustling with each deliberate step. "Though I suppose dullness suits you." Evelyn's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes on the window. 28 years of this. 28 years of barbed comments, dismissive glances, comparisons to her half-sister Caroline that always ended the same way. Caroline was beautiful. Caroline was charming. Caroline would make a spectacular match. And Evelyn, well, Evelyn was useful for managing the household accounts. "Your father and I have made a decision regarding your future." That got Evelyn's attention. She turned slowly, studying Constance's face. The older woman wore the expression she always did when delivering particularly bad news, a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What decision?" Constance moved to the writing desk, her fingers trailing across the polished wood. "We've received correspondence from a Mr. Wyatt Calloway, a rancher in Colorado Territory. He's looking for a wife." Evelyn blinked. "A mail-order bride arrangement? Don't make it sound so common. The man owns substantial property, cattle, land, resources. He wrote requesting a woman of refinement and education to manage his household." Constance picked up a letter from the desk, scanning it with theatrical disinterest. He specifically mentioned wanting someone from a good family, someone with breeding. "And you're telling me this because?" "Because you're going." The words landed like a fist to the stomach. Evelyn stared at her stepmother, waiting for the punchline, the cruel twist that always followed Constance's announcements. It came quickly. "Mr. Calloway saw Caroline's portrait. We sent him a photograph from her debut last year. He was quite taken with her beauty, as most men are." Constance set the letter down, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her skirts. "But Caroline is far too valuable to waste on some frontier rancher, no matter how much land he owns. So we're sending you instead." Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. "You sent him Caroline's portrait, and you're sending me?" "He'll receive exactly what he asked for, a woman of good breeding from the Mercer family. We never specified which daughter." Constance's smile widened. "Consider it an opportunity. You're 28, Evelyn. No prospects here. This way, you'll at least have a husband. He'll reject me the moment I step off that train. Perhaps. But by then, you'll be his problem, not ours." Constance moved toward the door, pausing with her hand on the frame. "You leave in 3 days. I've already made the arrangements. Pack appropriately. I doubt they have proper shops in Colorado." The door clicked shut. Evelyn stood frozen in the empty room, the rain still hammering against the window. Her mind spun through everything Constance had just said, searching for some angle she'd missed, some way this wasn't exactly as cruel as it sounded. But there wasn't one. Her family was shipping her west to a man who'd asked for Caroline, setting up a situation designed to humiliate everyone involved. The rancher would feel tricked. Evelyn would be rejected. And somewhere back in Boston, Constance would laugh about it at dinner parties for years. "Damn her," Evelyn whispered to the empty room. She crossed to the writing desk and picked up the letter Constance had left behind. The handwriting was rough but clear, the words straightforward. "I'm looking for a wife of good character and refinement. Someone who can manage a household and stand beside a man building something permanent in hard country. I own a cattle ranch in the Colorado High Plains. The work is difficult, the winters brutal, but the land is mine, and the future is what I make it. If you are a woman of courage and intelligence, willing to build something real, write back. It was signed Wyatt Calloway, Copper Ridge, Colorado. Evelyn read it twice, then set it down carefully. There was no mention of beauty, no request for delicate femininity or social graces, just courage and intelligence. Of course, Constance had ignored all that. To her stepmother, the only thing that mattered in any transaction was appearance. 3 days later, Evelyn stood on the platform at Boston's Union Station with a single trunk and a carpet bag. Her father hadn't come to see her off. Caroline had sent a note, "Good luck in the wilderness, dear sister," with a tone so syrupy Evelyn had thrown it in the fireplace. Only Constance appeared, and that was just to ensure Evelyn actually boarded the train. "Remember," Constance said, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear, "you represent the Mercer family. Try not to embarrass us more than necessary." Evelyn looked at her stepmother, this woman who'd made her life small and painful for nearly 3 decades, and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not anger, not anymore. Just a cold, clear understanding that she was done. "I'll do my best," Evelyn said quietly. She picked up her carpet bag, climbed the steps into the train car, and didn't look back. The journey west took 8 days. Evelyn watched the landscape change through the window. Boston's tight brick buildings giving way to farmland, then forests, then the great flat expanse of the plains. She shared a compartment with 2 other women traveling west for various reasons. One was a widow heading to Denver to live with her sister. The other was a young school teacher taking a position in a mining town. Neither asked too many questions, which Evelyn appreciated. On the 6th day, this train began climbing into the mountains. Evelyn pressed her face to the window, watching peaks emerge from the clouds like something out of a storybook. She'd never seen anything like it, raw, massive, indifferent to human presence. The train wound through passes and tunnels, the air growing thinner, the landscape wilder. "First time in the high country?" the schoolteacher asked. "Yes, it changes people." The young woman smiled. "My sister came out here 5 years ago, said she'd never go back east, said the mountains get inside you." Evelyn looked out at the peaks again. "I believe it." The train reached Copper Ridge just after noon on the 8th day. It wasn't much of a town, a single street with a general store, a saloon, a church, a handful of houses scattered on the hillside. The train station was barely more than a covered platform. Evelyn stepped down with her trunk, the thin mountain air hitting her lungs like ice water. A man stood near the edge of the platform, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing work clothes and a dusty hat. He was scanning the passengers with the look of someone expecting a specific person. Evelyn recognized him immediately from his letter, not from any description, but from the way he stood. Solid, unmoving, like he'd grown out of the ground itself. She picked up her carpet bag and walked toward him. Wyatt Calloway saw her coming and his expression shifted, confusion first, then something sharper. His eyes moved past her, searching the platform for someone else. "Mr. Calloway?" He looked down at her. Up close, he was younger than she'd expected, maybe 35, with sun-weathered skin and gray eyes that didn't miss much. "Who's asking?" "Evelyn Mercer, from Boston." Wyatt stared at her. "You're Evelyn Mercer." "I am." "The woman in the photograph was—" He stopped, jaw working. "That wasn't you." "No, that was my half-sister Caroline." Evelyn set her carpet bag down, meeting his eyes directly. "My stepmother sent you her portrait. She thought it would make a better impression." Wyatt's face went hard. "So this whole thing was a damned lie." "Yes." "And you knew? You got on that train knowing I was expecting someone else?" Evelyn felt her temper flare. "I got on that train knowing my family wanted me gone. They set this up as a joke, Mr. Calloway. You were supposed to reject me on sight. They're probably waiting for a telegram right now telling them how badly it went." She picked up her bag again. "If you want to send me back, I understand, but I spent 8 days on that train, and I'm not getting back on it today. I'll find a room in town, wire my family for funds, and leave in the morning." Wyatt looked at her for a long moment. "You got people here? Anyone expecting you besides me?" "No." "Money?" "Enough for a room, maybe 2 nights if the rates are reasonable." "They're not." Wyatt rubbed the back of his neck, still staring at her like she was a problem he couldn't solve. "Hell." Evelyn waited. "You always this blunt?" he asked finally. Would you prefer I lie? No. He picked up her trunk like it weighed nothing. Come on. Where are we going? My ranch. It's about an hour outside town. He started walking toward a wagon hitched near the general store. You can stay there tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do with you. Evelyn followed, trying to keep up with his long strides. You're taking me to your ranch even though I'm not who you expected? I'm not leaving you stranded in Copper Ridge with no money and nowhere to go. Whatever else your family did, that's not on you. He loaded her trunk into the wagon bed, then turned to offer her a hand up. But we're going to have a conversation about this arrangement, a real one. No more games. Evelyn took his hand and climbed up. Agreed. The ride out to the ranch was quiet at first. The road, if you could call it that, was more like a suggestion carved through scrub grass and rocky soil. The wagon bounced over ruts and stones, and Evelyn gripped the seat to keep from being thrown around. Wyatt drove with the ease of someone who'd made this trip 1,000 times. How long have you had the ranch? Evelyn asked eventually. 8 years? Bought the land with money I saved working cattle drives up from Texas. Built the house myself, most of the outbuildings too. By yourself? Had help from some of the men who work for me now. But yeah, mostly me. He glanced at her. You ever lived outside a city? No. It's different out here, harder. We're 20 miles from the nearest doctor. Winters can drop to 30 below. Wolves, mountain lions, rattlesnakes, and that's before you get to the regular problems. Broken fences, sick cattle, storms that come out of nowhere and try to kill you. Evelyn looked at him. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. You said no more games. Well, here's the truth. The woman I was expecting was supposed to be tough enough to handle this place. I don't know if you are. Then I guess we'll both find out. Wyatt almost smiled at that. Almost. The ranch appeared as they crested a low hill. It was smaller than Evelyn had imagined. A 2-story house made of rough-cut timber, a barn, a bunkhouse, several corrals. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still capped with snow. The land rolled out in every direction, empty except for scattered cattle and the occasional line of cottonwoods marking a creek bed. It's not Boston, Wyatt said. No, Evelyn agreed. It's not. He pulled the wagon up near the house and climbed down, grabbing her trunk. I'll put you in the guest room. It's small, but it's got a bed and a window. You can clean up, rest. We'll talk over dinner. Evelyn followed him inside. The house was clean but sparse. Wooden floors, simple furniture, no decorations beyond a few practical items. It smelled like wood smoke and coffee. Wyatt carried her trunk upstairs to a small room at the end of the hall. He was right. It was small. But the bed looked sturdy, and through the window she could see the mountains turning gold in the afternoon light. Thank you, she said. Wyatt nodded, already heading for the door. Dinner's at 6. I'll knock. He left her alone. Evelyn sat on the bed, running her hands over the rough wool blanket. 8 days ago she'd been in Boston, standing in that cold bedroom while Constance explained how they were getting rid of her. Now she was in Colorado, in a house built by a man who'd expected someone beautiful and got her instead. She should have felt humiliated, angry, scared. Instead, she felt something else. Something she hadn't felt in years, curious. At 6, Wyatt knocked on her door. Evelyn had washed her face, changed into a clean dress, and braided her hair back. She followed him downstairs to a kitchen that was larger than she'd expected, with a big iron stove and a table that could seat 8. You cook? Wyatt asked, pulling a pot off the stove. Yes. Good, because I'm terrible at it. He ladled stew into 2 bowls and set them on the table. Sit. They ate in silence for a while. The stew was simple. Beef, potatoes, carrots, but it was hot and filling. Evelyn realized she hadn't eaten since breakfast on the train. So, Wyatt said finally, setting down his spoon, let's talk. All right. I wrote to your family looking for a wife, a partner, someone who could help me build something permanent out here. I wasn't looking for a decoration or someone to show off at parties. I need someone who can work, think, and survive when things go wrong. Evelyn met his eyes. I can do that. You don't know that. You've been here 4 hours. You're right. I don't know for certain, but I managed my father's entire household for 10 years after my mother died. I kept the books, supervised the staff, dealt with creditors and suppliers. I'm not fragile, Mr. Calloway. I'm just plain. Wyatt leaned back in his chair, studying her. Your family really sent you out here as a joke? Yes? That's cruel. They're cruel people. Evelyn picked up her spoon again, focusing on her food. They always have been. And you still want to stay? Even knowing I was expecting someone else? Evelyn looked up at him. I have nothing to go back to. No prospects, no future, no one who wants me there. If I get back on that train, I'll spend the rest of my life being the unmarried daughter who manages the house while my sister marries well and produces grandchildren. I'd rather take my chances here. Even with a man you don't know? Even then, Wyatt was quiet for a long time. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the kitchen walls orange and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. All right, but, he said finally, here's what I'm offering. You stay for 2 weeks. You see what life is really like out here. You work, you learn, you figure out if you can handle it. At the end of 2 weeks, we both decide, do we go through with this marriage, or do I buy you a ticket east and we part ways clean? And if we decide to go through with it, then we get married and we build this ranch together, equal partners. I'm not looking for someone to bow and scrape. I need someone who can stand beside me when things get hard. Evelyn extended her hand across the table. 2 weeks. Then we both decide. Wyatt shook her hand. His grip was calloused and strong. 2 weeks, he agreed. The first week tested every assumption Evelyn had about herself. Wyatt put her to work immediately, not out of cruelty, but necessity. The ranch ran on a tight schedule, and there was no room for passengers. She learned to feed chickens, collect eggs, haul water from the well. She helped in the kitchen, cooking for Wyatt and the 3 ranch hands who worked the property. She mucked stalls, mended fences, and learned to recognize the signs of a coming storm by watching the sky. The work was brutal. Evelyn's hands blistered, then calloused. Her back ached from hauling buckets and bending over laundry tubs. She went to bed exhausted and woke up sore. But she didn't complain. The ranch hands, 3 men named Tom, Samuel, and Jack, watched her with open skepticism at first. They'd been expecting the woman from the photograph too, and Evelyn's arrival had clearly disappointed them, but she ignored their stares and kept working. By the 4th day, Tom started showing her how to properly lift fence posts without straining her back. By the 6th day, Samuel was teaching her to read weather patterns in the clouds. Wyatt watched all of it without comment. On the 7th day, a late spring storm rolled in. Evelyn was in the kitchen when the temperature dropped 20 degrees in 10 minutes. Wyatt came through the door moving fast. Storm's coming, bad one. We need to get the cattle into the lower pasture before it hits. Evelyn grabbed her coat. What do you need me to do? Stay inside. This isn't... What do you need me to do? She repeated. Wyatt looked at her, then nodded. Help Tom move the stock near the barn. If the wind picks up, get them inside. Don't try to be a hero. If you can't handle them, leave them and get to cover yourself. Understood. The storm hit like a wall. Wind screamed across the plains, driving rain sideways. Evelyn worked alongside Tom, herding confused cattle toward the barn. The animals didn't want to move, spooked by the thunder and lightning that cracked overhead. Evelyn's dress was soaked through in minutes, her hair plastered to her face. Come on! Tom shouted over the wind. Move, you stubborn bastards! One of the steers broke away, charging toward the open pasture. Evelyn ran after it without thinking, grabbing a rope from the fence post. She'd watched the men work often enough to know the basic motion. Loop, swing, release. Her first throw missed. Her second caught the steer's horns. She dug her heels in, pulling hard. The steer dragged her 3 feet before Tom caught up and added his weight to the rope. Together they wrestled the animal back toward the barn. You're crazier than you look, Tom yelled, grinning. Evelyn grinned back, breathless. They got the cattle secured just as the worst of the storm hit. Evelyn stumbled into the barn, shaking with cold and adrenaline. Wyatt was there, checking on the horses. He looked up when she came in. You got them all? Every one. He looked at her, soaked, muddy, grinning like an idiot, and shook his head. You're supposed to be refined. I'm supposed to be a lot of things. The storm passed by nightfall. Evelyn changed into dry clothes and helped make dinner for everyone. The ranch hands ate like wolves, grateful for hot food and a warm kitchen. Wyatt sat at the head of the table, quieter than usual. After everyone had gone to bed, Evelyn found him on the porch, looking out at the clearing sky. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Never can right after a storm. Always feel like I should be checking something." He glanced at her. "You did good today. Tom did most of the work. He said you chased down that steer yourself. Said you roped it on the second throw." Evelyn leaned against the porch railing. "I got lucky. Maybe. Or maybe you're tougher than your family gave you credit for." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching stars emerge in the washed, clean sky. "We're past the halfway point," Wyatt said eventually. "One more week. You still want to stay?" Evelyn looked out at the dark land, the mountains rising like shadows against the stars. "Yes. Even knowing what the work is like, what it'll be like every day for the rest of your life?" "Even then." Wyatt nodded slowly. "All right." The second week was harder. Not because the work got worse, but because Evelyn started to understand what permanent meant. This wasn't a trial anymore. This was her future. These mountains, this land, this rough house in the middle of nowhere. And Wyatt, a man she barely knew but was starting to respect more than anyone she'd ever met. He was blunt, often gruff, and had no patience for pretense. But he was also fair. He worked harder than anyone else on the ranch. He treated his men with respect and paid them fairly. And he'd taken in a stranger because it was the right thing to do, even when that stranger wasn't what he'd expected. On the 11th day, one of the ranch hands, Jack, got kicked by a horse. The blow caught him in the ribs, and he went down hard. Evelyn heard the commotion from the house and ran outside. Jack was on the ground, gasping, his face white with pain. "Get him inside," Wyatt ordered. "Evelyn, clear the kitchen table." They carried Jack into the house and laid him out on the table. Evelyn could see the way he was breathing, shallow, uneven. Broken ribs, probably. Maybe worse. "Nearest doctor's in Copper Ridge," Tom said. 20 miles. "He might not make it that far," Wyatt said grimly. Evelyn stepped forward. "I can help." Wyatt looked at her. "You know medicine?" "Some. My mother was sick for years before she died. I learned to treat pain, set bones, recognize when something was serious." She looked at Jack. "Let me examine him." Wyatt stepped back. Evelyn worked carefully, checking Jack's ribs, his breathing, his color. 2 ribs were broken, but they hadn't punctured anything vital. She wrapped his chest tightly, gave him water mixed with willow bark for the pain, and told him to stay still. "You'll hurt like hell for a few weeks," she said. "But you'll live." Jack managed a weak smile. "Thanks, ma'am." They moved him to the bunkhouse to rest. Wyatt walked Evelyn back to the house. "Where'd you really learn that?" he asked. "I told you. My mother was sick." "That was more than just nursing a sick woman. You knew what you were doing." Evelyn looked at him. "I spent 10 years watching her die slowly. The doctors couldn't do anything, so I learned. I read everything I could find about medicine, pain management, anatomy. I couldn't save her, but I learned enough to help when I could." Wyatt was quiet. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." Still, they reached the porch. The sun was setting again, painting the mountains red and gold. 2 more days, Wyatt said. "Then we decide." Evelyn nodded. 2 more days. On the 13th day, a rider came up the road, a young man from town carrying a telegram. Wyatt took it, read it, and his face went dark. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. He handed her the paper. The telegram was from Boston, from her father. "Demand Evelyn return immediately. Arrangement with Calloway fraudulent. Legal action pending if she not returned within 30 days. Evelyn read it twice, feeling something cold and sharp settle in her chest. "They're threatening you. They're trying to scare me." Wyatt crumpled the telegram. "Won't work. They could cause real problems. My father has connections, lawyers. Let them try. You came here of your own free will. You're a grown woman. They can't force you back." Evelyn looked at him. "Why are you defending me? You could send me home and avoid all this." Wyatt met her eyes. "Because what they did was wrong, and because I don't let bullies push me around no matter how much money or power they think they have. This could get messy." "It already is messy." He gestured at the telegram. "But I'm not making decisions based on threats from people I've never met. We agreed on 2 weeks. We're sticking to that." The 14th day arrived cold and clear. Evelyn woke early, dressed carefully, and went downstairs. Wyatt was already in the kitchen, 2 cups of coffee on the table. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. No. They sat across from each other, drinking coffee in the pre-dawn light. So, Wyatt said finally, decision time. Evelyn set down her cup. I want to stay, if you'll have me. Even knowing your family's going to fight this, especially knowing that. She looked at him directly. I'm done letting them control my life. I'm done being the unwanted daughter. I want to build something here. With you. If you'll let me. Wyatt was quiet for a long moment. I'm not an easy man to live with. I work too much. I don't talk about feelings. And this place, it'll test you every single day. I know. And you still want this? Yes. Wyatt nodded slowly. Then we're getting married, soon as we can arrange it. Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. Relief, hope, something close to joy. When? End of the month. Give you time to get a proper dress. Invite anyone you want. We'll do it right. I don't need a fancy dress. Maybe not, but you're getting one anyway. Wyatt stood, extending his hand. Partners? Evelyn took his hand and stood, meeting his eyes. Partners. Outside, the sun broke over the mountains, flooding the kitchen with gold light. And for the first time in her 28 years, Evelyn Mercer felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The wedding was set for May 28th, 3 weeks away. Evelyn spent the first morning after their decision writing letters, one to a seamstress in Copper Ridge about a dress, another to the local minister about the ceremony. She didn't write to her family. That bridge had burned the moment she'd read her father's telegram. Wyatt rode into town that afternoon to file the marriage license and post notices. He came back after dark, his face tight. Problem? Evelyn asked from the kitchen table where she was mending one of his shirts. Ran into the territorial marshal. He'd gotten a wire from Boston. Your father's lawyers are claiming I coerced you into this arrangement. Evelyn set down the needle. That's absurd. I know that, you know that, but they're making noise about it anyway. Wyatt pulled off his hat, tossing it onto a chair. Marshall said he has to investigate if formal complaints come through. Just doing his job. What does that mean for us? Means we might have visitors, officials asking questions, checking to make sure you're here willingly. He looked at her. You are, right? Because if there's any part of you that feels trapped, I'm not trapped. I chose this. Good. Then we let them ask their questions and we tell the truth. Wyatt moved to the stove, pouring himself coffee that had gone cold hours ago. But it's going to get messy before it gets better. He was right. 2 days later, a man in an expensive suit arrived at the ranch driving a rented buggy. He introduced himself as Howard Finch, attorney representing the Mercer family interests. He was 40-something, with slicked hair and the kind of smile that didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. Miss Mercer, he said, standing in the doorway like he owned the place. Your family is very concerned about your welfare. I'm sure they are, Evelyn said dryly. May I come in? I'd like to discuss your situation privately. Wyatt appeared behind Evelyn, still holding the hammer he'd been using to repair the porch railing. She's not talking to anyone alone. Finch's smile didn't waver. Mr. Calloway, I presume. This is a family matter. She's about to be my wife. That makes it my business too. Actually, that's precisely what we need to discuss. Finch pulled a folder from his bag. The Mercer family has reason to believe this engagement is the result of fraud and coercion. They're prepared to file criminal charges if Miss Mercer doesn't return to Boston immediately. Evelyn felt anger flash hot through her chest. Nobody coerced me into anything. Your stepmother claims you were forced onto that train against your will. My stepmother is lying. Nevertheless, your family has rights. They're prepared to pursue this matter in territorial court if necessary. Finch set the folder on the porch railing. However, they're willing to drop all charges if you simply come home. They'll even pay for your return passage. Wyatt stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. Mr. Calloway, I should warn you, interfering with a family's lawful attempts to retrieve their daughter could result in serious legal consequences for you personally. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Finch picked up his folder, his smile finally fading. You have until the end of the week to reconsider. After that, My clients will pursue every available legal remedy. He climbed back into his buggy and drove away, leaving dust hanging in the air. Evelyn watched him go, her hands clenched into fists. They're not going to stop. I know. They'll drag this through courts, make it as expensive and painful as possible. That's what they do. That's what Constance does when she wants to win. Wyatt looked at her. You want to give up? No, but I don't want to destroy you either. Too late. I'm already in this. He picked up his hammer again. Besides, I've dealt with worse than some Boston lawyer who's never spent a day doing real work in his life. Your family wants a fight? They can have one. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She lay in the small guest room staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Downstairs, she could hear Wyatt moving around. He couldn't sleep either. She got up, pulled a shawl around her shoulders, and went down to the kitchen. Wyatt was sitting at the table with a whiskey bottle and a stack of papers. He looked up when she came in. Couldn't sleep either? No. Evelyn sat across from him. What are you reading? Property deeds, contracts, everything related to this ranch. He pushed the papers aside. I'm making sure there's nothing they can use against me. No debts, no unclear titles, nothing. You think they'll try to take the ranch? I think they'll try whatever works. Your father's rich, right? Very. Then he can hire lawyers who'll look for any angle. I want to make sure there isn't one. Wyatt poured whiskey into a second glass and slid it across to her. You don't have to do this, you know. You could go back, avoid all this trouble. And do what? Be Constance's servant for the rest of my life? Evelyn picked up the glass. I'd rather fight. Even if it gets ugly? Especially if it gets ugly. I'm tired of losing to them. Wyatt studied her for a moment, then raised his glass. To fighting ugly. Evelyn clinked her glass against his. To fighting ugly. The next morning brought another visitor, this time the territorial marshal himself, a gray-haired man named Garrett, who'd been keeping law in Colorado for 20 years. He was polite but thorough, asking Evelyn questions about how she'd come to be at the ranch, whether she felt safe, whether anyone had threatened or coerced her. No, Evelyn said firmly. I came here willingly. I'm staying willingly. My family is trying to control me because that's what they've always done. Marshal Garrett wrote everything down in a small notebook. Your father claims you were sent here under false pretenses. I was. My stepmother sent Mr. Calloway a photograph of my half-sister and told him he was getting her. Instead, they sent me. But that's not Mr. Calloway's fault. It's theirs. And you still want to marry him, even knowing he was expecting someone else? Evelyn looked at Wyatt, who was standing by the window listening to every word. Yes, I still want to marry him. Garrett closed his notebook. All right, I'll file my report. As far as I'm concerned, you're a grown woman making your own choices. But Miss Mercer, if that changes, if you ever feel unsafe here, you come find me. Understood? Understood. Thank you, Marshal. After Garrett left, Evelyn sagged against the kitchen counter. How many more times am I going to have to explain this? As many as it takes. Wyatt moved beside her. But you did good. You were clear, direct. No one listening to you could think you were being forced. Constance won't care. She'll just find another angle. Then we'll deal with that one too. The next attack came through the newspaper. Someone, Evelyn suspected her family had paid for it, ran a story in the Denver paper about mail-order bride fraud in the territories. It didn't name Wyatt or Evelyn directly, but the details were close enough that anyone paying attention would make the connection. The article painted a picture of unscrupulous frontier men luring innocent women west with false promises. Tom brought the paper back from town, his face angry. This is horseshit. It's strategy, Evelyn said quietly, reading the article. Make Wyatt look like a criminal. Make me look like a victim. Turn public opinion against us. Who cares what people in Denver think? Judges care. Juries care. If this goes to court, they want everyone believing we're the villains. She set the paper down. Constance is smart. Cruel, but smart. Wyatt read the article over her shoulder. We need to counter this. Get our side of the story out. How? I don't know yet, but sitting here and letting them control the narrative isn't working. That evening, as Evelyn was cooking dinner, an idea started forming. She found Wyatt in the barn, checking on a mare that was due to foal soon. I want to write a letter, she said. Wyatt looked up from the mayor's stall. To who? Everyone. The newspapers, the territorial governor, anyone who'll listen. I want to tell the truth about what my family did, how they set this up, how they lied to both of us, how they're trying to destroy your reputation because they're embarrassed I didn't come crawling back. You sure you want to do that? Once it's out there, you can't take it back. I'm sure. They've been controlling my story my whole life. It's time I told it myself. Wyatt nodded slowly. All right, write it. I'll make sure it gets printed. Evelyn spent the next 2 days crafting the letter. She wrote about growing up as the unwanted daughter, about Constance's cruelty, about the photograph deception. She wrote about arriving in Colorado expecting rejection and finding something better, a man who valued work and honesty over appearances. She wrote about choosing to stay, about the 2-week trial period, about falling in love with the land and the life, even though it was harder than anything she'd known. She didn't ask for sympathy, she just told the truth. Wyatt read it when she finished, his face unreadable. This is going to embarrass your family, publicly. Good. They'll retaliate. Let them. Evelyn met his eyes. I'm done being afraid of them. Wyatt folded the letter carefully. I'll take it to the newspaper in Denver tomorrow, and to a few editors I know in other cities. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. He left before dawn the next morning. Evelyn spent the day working through her nervousness, feeding animals, cleaning the house, preparing food for the week. The ranch hands noticed her mood and gave her space. Even Tom, who usually joked through everything, stayed quiet. Wyatt returned after dark, looking exhausted. Did they print it? Evelyn asked. Denver will run it tomorrow. So will papers in Cheyenne and Santa Fe. I also sent copies to some eastern papers. Figured if your family wants to play this game in Boston, we should play it there too. Evelyn felt her stomach twist. So now we wait. Now we wait. The response came faster than either of them expected. Within 3 days, Evelyn's letter had been reprinted in a dozen newspapers across the West and several major eastern cities. The story exploded, not because people cared about one woman's marriage, but because it was scandalous. A wealthy Boston family exposed for cruelty. A mail-order bride arrangement gone wrong. A frontier rancher defending his intended wife against corrupt Eastern money. Letters started arriving at the ranch. Some were supportive. Other women who'd escaped bad families. Men who respected Wyatt for standing his ground. Others were vicious. People calling Evelyn a liar, accusing her of trying to destroy her family's good name for attention. The worst letter came from Caroline. Evelyn recognized her half-sister's handwriting on the envelope. She opened it in the kitchen while Wyatt was outside working. The letter was short and cruel. You always were selfish, Evelyn. Now the whole world can see what you really are. A bitter, jealous woman who couldn't stand that I was loved, and you weren't. You've humiliated our family, destroyed our reputation, and for what? To marry some rough frontiersman who will bore of you within a year? I hope you're happy in your little shack in the wilderness, because you'll never be welcome in polite society again. Mother was right about you. You were always a burden. Evelyn read it twice, then carried it to the stove and dropped it in the fire. She watched Caroline's words curl and blacken, turning to ash. When Wyatt came in for dinner, he found her sitting at the table, staring at nothing. You all right? My sister wrote to me. What'd she say? That I'm selfish and bitter, and I've destroyed the family. Wyatt poured water into the basin, washing the day's dirt from his hands. You believe her? Part of me does. Part of me will always believe I'm not good enough. That's them talking, not you. He dried his hands, then sat across from her. The woman I've been living with for the past month isn't selfish. She works harder than most men I know. She stood up to a lawyer who tried to intimidate her. She wrote a letter that took more courage than most people have in their entire lives. That's not selfish. That's brave. Evelyn looked at him, feeling something crack open in her chest. You really believe that? I wouldn't say it if I didn't. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The following week brought the biggest blow yet. Howard Finch returned to the ranch, this time with 2 Pinkerton detectives and a territorial judge. They arrived in an official capacity, armed with a court order demanding an investigation into potential fraud and coercion. Wyatt met them at the property line, blocking the road. You're not welcome here. Judge Harrison, an older man with a permanent scowl, stepped forward. Mr. Calloway, we have a legal order to investigate. I don't care what you have. This is private property and you're trespassing. We can return with a warrant and federal marshals if necessary. Evelyn appeared beside Wyatt, still wearing her work clothes, her hands covered in flour from making bread. Let them come inside. Wyatt looked at her. Evelyn, let them come inside. Let them ask their questions. Let them see for themselves. The group filed into the house. The Pinkerton men looked around with barely concealed disgust. This rough frontier home was clearly beneath their standards. Judge Harrison took the main chair at the kitchen table like it was a throne. Miss Mercer, he began, pulling out papers, we're here to determine whether you entered into this engagement of your own free will. I did. Your family claims otherwise. They have sworn statements saying you were forced onto the train to Colorado against your wishes. My family is lying. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Evelyn remained standing, refusing to sit. My stepmother wanted me gone. She sent Mr. Calloway a photograph of my beautiful half-sister and told him he was getting her. Then she sent me instead as a joke. She expected him to reject me and send me back humiliated. But he didn't. He gave me a choice. Stay and see if we could make it work, or leave. I chose to stay. One of the Pinkerton men spoke up. You expect us to believe a wealthy Boston family would do something so cruel to their own daughter? Half-daughter. And yes, I expect you to believe it, because it's exactly the kind of thing Constance Mercer would do. Judge Harrison shuffled his papers. Mr. Calloway, when did you first realize the woman arriving was not the woman in the photograph? The moment she stepped off the train. And you still took her to your ranch? I wasn't going to leave her stranded in town with no money and nowhere to go. How noble. The judge's tone was dry. And when did this arrangement become romantic? Wyatt's jaw tightened. That's none of your business. It's entirely my business if this court is determining whether coercion occurred. Evelyn stepped forward. Nothing romantic has happened. We've barely touched beyond a handshake. Mr. Calloway has been a perfect gentleman. We made an agreement, 2 weeks to see if we could build a partnership. At the end of those 2 weeks, we both decided to proceed with marriage. That's all. The Pinkerton men exchanged glances. Judge Harrison made notes. The questioning went on for over an hour. They asked about sleeping arrangements, financial agreements, daily routines. They asked whether Wyatt had ever threatened her, whether she felt free to leave, whether she had access to money or transportation. Evelyn answered every question directly, her anger building with each one. Finally, Judge Harrison closed his notebook. Miss Mercer, I'm required to ask you one final time. Do you wish to return to Boston with us today? We can provide safe escort and ensure Mr. Calloway faces no retaliation. I'm not going anywhere with you. You're certain? Completely certain. I'm marrying Wyatt Calloway in 10 days. After that, my name will be Evelyn Calloway, not Evelyn Mercer, and I will never set foot in Boston again. The judge stood. Very well. I'll file my report. Mr. Finch, your clients will receive my findings within the week. Howard Finch's face had gone tight with frustration. Your Honor, with all due respect, the woman has made her position clear, Counselor. Unless you have evidence of actual coercion, this investigation is closed. They left in a flurry of expensive coats and disapproving looks. Evelyn watched them go, her hands shaking with suppressed rage. You all right? Wyatt asked quietly. I will be. Once I stop wanting to punch something. There's a fence post out back that needs replacing. You could take your anger out on that. Evelyn almost laughed. Maybe I will. She did, actually. She spent the next hour helping Wyatt and Tom dig out an old fence post and set a new one. The physical work helped burn off the fury, and by the time they finished, she felt almost human again. That night, Evelyn found herself back on the porch with Wyatt. It had become their spot, where they talked through problems, made plans, existed in comfortable silence. The mountains were dark shapes against the stars. 10 days, Wyatt said. 10 days, Evelyn agreed. You nervous? Terrified. He glanced at her. Of marrying me? Of everything that comes after. Of whether I can actually do this for the rest of my life. Of whether I'll wake up one day and realize I made a terrible mistake. You think I don't worry about the same things? That surprised her. You do? Every day? I'm marrying a woman I've known for a month, a woman who comes from a completely different world. What if you wake up one day and decide you can't stand the isolation? The work? Me. What if you wake up one day and realize you got exactly what you didn't want? The plain sister instead of the beautiful one. Wyatt turned to face her fully. You think that's what I see when I look at you? The plain sister? It's what everyone sees. It's not what I see. He leaned against the railing, his expression serious. I see someone who works harder than most men. Someone who roped a spooked steer in the middle of a storm without hesitation. Someone who stood up to lawyers and judges and her own family without backing down. Someone who chose this life knowing exactly how hard it would be. He paused. That's not plain. That's extraordinary. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. You really mean that? I really mean that. They stood in silence for a while, the night settling around them. Wyatt? Evelyn said quietly. Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for staying. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Evelyn's dress was finished, simple but well made, ivory cotton with lace at the collar and cuffs. Tom and the other ranch hands cleaned the barn for the reception. Samuel rode to neighboring ranches, inviting everyone within 20 miles. The whole community seemed determined to make this wedding something special. Evelyn sent one final letter to Boston. Not to her father or Constance or Caroline, to the family lawyer, a man named Mr. Peterson, who'd always treated her kindly. Dear Mr. Peterson, she wrote, by the time you read this, I will be married to Wyatt Calloway and living permanently in Colorado. I am writing to inform you that I renounce any claim to the Mercer family, inheritance, or property. I want nothing from them. I also request that all future correspondence from the Mercer family be returned unopened. I am starting a new life with a new name. Evelyn Mercer is dead. Sincerely, Evelyn Calloway, soon to be. She posted the letter herself, riding into Copper Ridge with Tom. As she dropped the envelope in the mail slot, she felt something lift from her shoulders. Done. Finished. The last connection to that old life severed cleanly. Feel good? Tom asked. Feels like I can finally breathe. The day before the wedding, Evelyn woke to find the ranch transformed. Wildflowers had been gathered and arranged in jars. The barn had been swept clean, lanterns hung from the rafters. Someone, probably Samuel, had built a makeshift altar at one end using pine boards and more wildflowers. Wyatt found her standing in the barn doorway, staring at the preparations. You did all this? She asked. We all did. Everyone wanted to help. He moved beside her. You deserve a proper wedding, even if it's in a barn. I've never had anything like this. Even growing up with money, I never felt like anyone actually cared. Well, now you do. These people, they're your community now, your family. Evelyn looked at him. And you? I'm your partner, through everything that comes next. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing once. He squeezed back. That evening, the women from neighboring ranches descended on Evelyn, pulling her away from the main house to one of the guest cabins. They'd organized a small gathering, nothing fancy, just women sitting around talking, sharing stories about their own marriages and lives on the frontier. Martha Sullivan, who ran a ranch 10 miles north with her husband, poured whiskey into tin cups. To the bride, may she always know when to dig in her heels and when to let the stubborn bastard think he won. The women laughed and drank. Sarah Chen, whose family had a sheep operation in the valley, leaned forward. You nervous? Terrified, Evelyn admitted. Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. Marriage is terrifying, especially out here. Sarah gestured at the cabin walls, the wilderness beyond. But you've already survived the hardest part, choosing it. Everything else is just work. That's comforting, Evelyn said dryly. It's true, though, Martha refilled her cup. Most of us came out here following men, husbands, fathers, brothers. We didn't choose this life, it chose us. But you picked it. That makes you tougher than most. Or crazier, someone else added. Maybe both, Evelyn said. They stayed up late, these frontier women who'd become her neighbors, sharing stories and advice and quiet support. By the time Evelyn stumbled back to her room well past midnight, she felt something she'd never expected to feel the night before her wedding. Ready. The morning of the wedding arrived with clouds threatening rain. Evelyn woke to Martha Sullivan banging on her door, already dressed and carrying a basket of supplies. Up, now. We've got 3 hours to make you presentable. Evelyn stumbled out of bed, her head fuzzy from too little sleep and too much whiskey. It's barely dawn. Dawn was an hour ago. Sarah's heating water for your bath, and I brought pins for your hair. Move. The next 2 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. Evelyn was scrubbed, her hair washed and arranged, her dress fitted and adjusted. Martha worked with the efficiency of someone who'd organized a dozen frontier weddings, barking orders at Sarah and the other women who kept appearing with flowers, ribbons, and opinions about everything. "You're too pale," Sarah announced, pinching Evelyn's cheeks. "Bite your lips." "No, harder than that." "I'm not biting myself bloody for vanity." "It's not vanity. It's your wedding. You want to look like a ghost?" "I want to look like myself." Martha stepped back, surveying her work. "You do look like yourself, just a cleaner, more organized version." She adjusted one of the wildflowers tucked into Evelyn's braided hair. "There. Perfect." Evelyn looked at herself in the small mirror Martha had brought. The dress fit well, simple and practical, but still pretty. Her hair was swept up with small white flowers woven through it. She looked nervous. She looked ready. "Thank you," she said quietly. "All of you. I didn't expect—" "We take care of our own out here," Martha interrupted. "And you're one of us now, whether you like it or not." A knock came at the door. Tom's voice carried through the wood. 15 minutes. Minister's ready." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Already?" "Already?" Sarah squeezed her hand. "You can do this. And if you can't, we'll carry you down the aisle ourselves." They walked together to the barn, Evelyn flanked by women who'd become friends faster than she'd thought possible. The whole community had turned out, ranchers and their families, townspeople from Copper Ridge, even some of the shopkeepers who'd helped with supplies. The barn was packed with people, all of them turning to look as Evelyn appeared in the doorway. And there was Wyatt, standing at the makeshift altar in a clean shirt and his best pants, his hair combed back, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. When their eyes met, he smiled, small, quick, genuine. Evelyn walked down the aisle between rows of rough benches. There was no music, no organ, just the sound of her footsteps on the barn floor and the murmur of people watching. When she reached Wyatt, he extended his hand. She took it. The minister was a traveling preacher who covered 6 counties on horseback. He was young, earnest, and had a tendency to rush through ceremonies like he was being chased. "Dearly beloved," he began, then stopped, looking at Wyatt. "Actually, did you want the long version or the short version?" "Short," Wyatt said immediately. "Good. Do you, Wyatt James Calloway, take this woman as your lawfully wedded wife to have and to hold, for better or worse, richer or poorer, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." The minister turned to Evelyn. "Do you, Evelyn Rose Mercer, take this man as your lawfully wedded husband? Same conditions?" Evelyn looked at Wyatt, this man who'd given her a choice when no one else ever had, who'd stood beside her against lawyers and judges and her own cruel family, who'd built something real in this hard country and invited her to help build it bigger. "I do." "Rings?" Tom stepped forward with 2 simple gold bands. Wyatt slid one onto Evelyn's finger, his hand steady. She did the same for him, her hands shaking slightly. "By the power vested in me by Colorado territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. You can kiss her if you want, or shake hands. I don't care which." Wyatt looked at Evelyn, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. He leaned down and kissed her, brief, careful, almost formal. When he pulled back, his ears were red. The barn erupted in cheers and applause. Someone started playing a fiddle. People surged forward to congratulate them, shaking hands, clapping Wyatt on the back, hugging Evelyn. The formality dissolved into celebration. Tables were dragged out, food appeared from nowhere, whiskey bottles made the rounds. Evelyn found herself swept into conversations, introductions, 100 small interactions with people whose names she'd barely learned. Everyone wanted to meet the mail-order bride who'd stood up to Boston money and won. "Your family must be furious," one of the townswomen said, not unkindly. "Probably." "Good. Rich people need taking down a peg now and then." As the afternoon wore on, the celebration settled into something easier. People ate, drank, told stories. The fiddle player was joined by someone on a harmonica, and couples started dancing in the space that had been cleared near the altar. Wyatt appeared at Evelyn's elbow. "Dance? I don't know how to dance like this." "Neither do I." We'll figure it out. He pulled her onto the makeshift dance floor. They moved awkwardly at first, trying to find the rhythm, stepping on each other's feet. But after a few minutes, they found a pattern that worked. Nothing fancy, just turning in slow circles while the music played. "You happy?" Wyatt asked quietly. "Yes." "Are you?" "Yes." He paused. "Though I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "Like what?" "Like your family showing up with more lawyers, or the barn catching fire, or me waking up and realizing this was all a dream." Evelyn laughed. "If this is a dream, it's the best one I've had." The music shifted to something faster. Other couples joined them, and soon the barn was full of spinning, laughing people. Evelyn danced until her feet hurt, until she was breathless and sweating and happier than she could remember being in years. As the sun started setting, someone suggested moving the celebration outside. Tables and benches were carried into the yard. Lanterns were lit. The party continued under the darkening sky, the mountains turning purple and then black against the stars. Evelyn sat on one of the benches, watching people talk and laugh. Martha dropped down beside her, handing her a tin cup of whiskey. "How you holding up, Mrs. Calloway?" The name still sounded strange. "I'm good. Tired, but good. It's a lot, isn't it? All these people, all this attention. I'm not used to it. In Boston, I was invisible most of the time." "You're not invisible here. People see you. They respect what you did, standing up to your family, choosing this life. That takes guts." Martha took a drink. "Plus, you married the most eligible bachelor in 3 counties. Half the single women at this party wanted him." Evelyn looked over at Wyatt, who was deep in conversation with several ranchers about cattle prices and winter feed. He could have had anyone. "But he chose you, because you're the one who showed up when he needed a partner, not a decoration." Martha stood, stretching. "I'm heading home before it gets too late. You take care of yourself here. And if you need anything at all, you send Tom to fetch me." "Thank you, Martha, for everything." "Just being neighborly." People started leaving as the night deepened. Families with young children headed out first, then the older folks, then gradually everyone else, until only the ranch hands and a few close friends remained. They helped clean up, packing away tables and benches, dousing lanterns. Finally, around midnight, the last guest departed. Tom, Samuel, and Jack retreated to the bunkhouse, giving Wyatt and Evelyn privacy. The ranch fell quiet except for the wind and the distant sound of cattle. Evelyn stood in the yard looking up at the stars. They were so bright here, so many more than she'd ever seen in Boston. Wyatt came to stand beside her. "Long day," he said. "Long day," she agreed. "You want to go inside?" Evelyn nodded. They walked to the house together, Wyatt holding the door for her. Inside, everything looked the same as it had that morning. Same furniture, same rooms, but everything felt different now. This wasn't just where she was staying. This was home. "I'll sleep in the guest room," Wyatt said quietly. "Give you space to settle in." Evelyn turned to look at him. "Wyatt, we're married." "I know, but we barely know each other. I'm not going to, we can take our time with—" He stopped, clearly flustered. "Hell, I'm not good at this." "Neither am I." Evelyn took a breath. "But we agreed to be partners, to build this together. That doesn't mean we have to rush anything, but it also doesn't mean you have to sleep in a different room like we're strangers." Wyatt looked relieved. "All right, then we'll figure it out as we go." "As we go," Evelyn agreed. They went upstairs together. Wyatt showed her the main bedroom, larger than the guest room, with a bigger bed and windows overlooking the front of the property. Someone, probably Tom, had left fresh flowers in a jar on the dresser. "I'll give you some privacy to change," Wyatt said, backing toward the door. "Thank you." Evelyn changed into her nightgown, braided her hair, and washed her face in the basin. When she climbed into bed, Wyatt returned wearing his own nightclothes. He looked uncertain, like he wasn't sure where he was supposed to be. "Just get in," Evelyn said, trying not to laugh. He did, keeping carefully to his side of the bed. They lay there in the darkness, both staring at the ceiling. "This is awkward," Wyatt said finally. "Very. We'll get used to it." "Probably." Silence settled. Outside, an owl called. The house creaked in the wind. Evelyn felt herself starting to relax, exhaustion pulling her towards sleep. "Evelyn?" Wyatt's voice was quiet. Yeah? I'm glad you stayed. She reached out in the darkness and found his hand. Me too. They fell asleep like that, hands loosely linked in the space between them. The next morning, Evelyn woke to find Wyatt already gone, his side of the bed cold. She got up, dressed, and went downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but there was fresh coffee in the pot and a note on the table. Checking the north fence, back by noon. Make yourself at home. W. Make yourself at home. Evelyn looked around the kitchen, her kitchen now. She'd been cooking here for weeks, but always as a guest, as someone temporary. Now it was permanent. This was her house, her life. She poured coffee and went to work. By the time Wyatt returned at noon, Evelyn had reorganized the entire kitchen, scrubbed the floors, inventoried the pantry, and started a list of supplies they'd need from town. He found her elbow deep in flour, making bread. "You've been busy," he observed. "Couldn't sleep in. Too much to do." "It's the day after your wedding. You could rest." "I've rested enough. Besides, the bread was low and those shelves were a disaster. When's the last time you cleaned behind them?" "Never." "I could tell." Evelyn shaped the dough into loaves. "How's the fence?" "Holding, but we'll need to replace the post before winter." Wyatt poured himself coffee, watching her work. "You don't have to do all this, you know. We have a system. Your system involves stacking things until they fall over and then dealing with it. That's not a system. That's chaos. It worked fine before you got here." "Because you didn't know any better." Evelyn looked at him, challenging. "You going to fight me on this?" Wyatt raised his hands in surrender. "No, ma'am. Reorganize whatever you want." They fell into a routine over the next few days. Wyatt worked the ranch with Tom, Samuel, and Jack. Evelyn took over managing the house, the books, the supplies. She started a garden, organized the storage shed, and began treating minor injuries and illnesses for the ranch hands when needed. But beneath the surface of normal life, tension was building. A week after the wedding, another telegram arrived from Boston. Wyatt read it and swore. "Your father's not giving up." "What now?" "He's filed a lawsuit, claiming I fraudulently obtained you as a wife, demanding you be returned to his custody and seeking damages for—" Wyatt squinted at the telegram. "For emotional distress and reputational harm." Evelyn snatched the paper from him. "Emotional distress? He hasn't spoken to me in 10 years except to criticize." "Doesn't matter. He's got lawyers who will say whatever he pays them to say." "What do we do?" "We get our own lawyer, someone who knows territorial law and isn't afraid of Boston money." Wyatt grabbed his hat. "I'm riding into town. There's an attorney there who helped me with the land purchase. He's good. I'm coming with you." They rode into Copper Ridge together, arriving at a small office above the general store. The attorney, a middle-aged man named Robert Hayes, listened to their story while making notes. "This is a mess," he said bluntly. "Your father has resources. He can drag this through territorial courts for years if he wants to." "Can he win?" Evelyn asked. "Win what? You're a married woman now. The law recognizes that. He can't force you to leave your husband, but he can make your lives difficult. He can tie up Wyatt's assets, question the legitimacy of the marriage, demand investigations. It'll cost money and time." Wyatt leaned forward. "What's our best move?" "Countersuit. Sue him for harassment, for the costs of defending yourselves, for defamation based on that newspaper story. Make it expensive for him to continue. Most bullies back down when it starts costing them more than they're willing to pay. And if he doesn't back down," Hayes met Wyatt's eyes, "then we fight, but it won't be quick and it won't be pretty." They hired Hayes on the spot. Over the next few weeks, legal documents started flying back and forth between Colorado and Boston. Hayes was aggressive, filing motions and counterclaims that put Evelyn's family on the defensive. The newspapers picked up the story again, framing it as a frontier rancher standing up to corrupt Eastern wealth. Public opinion started shifting. Letters appeared in papers across the country supporting Evelyn and Wyatt, condemning her family's behavior. Some were from women who'd escaped bad families themselves. Others were from men who respected Wyatt's refusal to be bullied. The tide was turning, but the Mercer family wasn't done yet. One morning in late June, Evelyn was working in the garden when a carriage appeared on the road. Not a local wagon, a proper Eastern carriage, expensive and out of place. It pulled up to the house and a woman stepped out, Caroline. Evelyn stood slowly, dirt on her hands, shock freezing her in place. Her half-sister looked exactly as she had in Boston, beautiful, perfectly dressed, her blonde hair arranged in elaborate curls. She picked her way across the yard like she was navigating a minefield, clearly disgusted by the mud and dust. "Hello, Evelyn. What are you doing here?" "I came to talk to you, away from lawyers and judges and all this nonsense." Caroline gestured vaguely at the ranch. "Can we go inside?" "No. Say whatever you came to say right here." Caroline's perfect composure slipped slightly. "You're being difficult." "I'm being protective of my home, which you are not welcome in." "For heaven's sake, Evelyn, I'm your sister." "Half-sister, and you've never treated me like family a day in your life." Caroline's jaw tightened. "Fine, we'll do this out here." She pulled an envelope from her bag. "Mother sent me with an offer, a real one this time. She'll drop all legal action, leave you and your rancher alone if you agree to certain conditions." "What conditions?" "You never contact the family again. You never use the Mercer name in public. You sign a document stating that everything you wrote in those newspaper letters was exaggerated or false, and you agree to a financial settlement, a one-time payment that cuts all ties permanently." Evelyn stared at her sister. "She wants to buy my silence. She wants to end this war before it destroys us all. Our reputation is in ruins because of you. Father's business associates won't take meetings. I've had 3 engagement proposals fall through because of the scandal. You've hurt us, Evelyn. Badly." "Good." Caroline's composure cracked further. "Why are you doing this? What did we ever do to you that was so terrible?" Evelyn felt something surge up from deep in her chest. Years of swallowed anger, buried pain, endless humiliation. "What did you do? You made me invisible. You mocked me for being plain. You treated me like a burden and a joke. You sent me across the country to humiliate a stranger because Constance thought it would be funny. You spent my entire life making me feel worthless. And now you want to know why I'm fighting back? We gave you a home, education, everything you needed. You gave me nothing that mattered. No love, no respect, no kindness. Just criticism and cruelty dressed up as family obligation." Evelyn stepped closer. "I'm not signing anything. Tell Constance she can take her offer and go to hell. Tell Father the same. And tell them both that if they come after Wyatt or this ranch again, I'll write more letters. I'll tell more stories. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they really are." Caroline's face went pale, then red. "You've become bitter." "I've become honest. There's a difference. You'll regret this. When that rancher gets bored of you, when you're stuck in this wasteland with nothing and no one, you'll regret burning these bridges." "I'll take my chances." Caroline climbed back into her carriage without another word. Evelyn watched it disappear down the road, her hands shaking with adrenaline. Wyatt appeared from the barn. "Who was that?" "My sister, half-sister. She came with another offer from my family." "What'd you tell her?" "I told her to go to hell." Wyatt almost smiled. "That's my wife." But the visit shook Evelyn more than she wanted to admit. That night, she sat on the porch long after dark, unable to sleep. Wyatt found her there around midnight. "Still thinking about it?" "Can't stop thinking about it." Seeing her, hearing her voice, it brought everything back. Wyatt sat beside her. "You did the right thing, sending her away." "I know, but part of me wonders, what if she's right? What if this is all a mistake and in 5 years I'll be alone out here, regretting everything?" "You think I'm going to get bored of you?" "Men do. You wanted someone beautiful. You got me instead." Wyatt was quiet for a long moment. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" "Not particularly." "Too bad. I'm telling you anyway." He shifted to face her. "I see someone who works harder than anyone I know, who learned to rope cattle in a storm, who reorganized my entire house in 2 days, who told a fancy lawyer to go to hell without blinking. I see someone who makes this ranch run better, who treats injuries better than most doctors, who can cook for 6 men without complaining. I see a partner, the best one I could have asked for. I'm not beautiful like Caroline. Caroline couldn't survive a week out here. She'd break. You won't." He paused. "And for what it's worth, I think you're plenty beautiful, just not in the way Boston measures it." Evelyn felt tears threatening. "You're just saying that." "I don't say things I don't mean. You know that by now." She did know that. Wyatt was brutally honest, sometimes to a fault. If he thought she was useless or disappointing, he'd say so. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Not just what I'm supposed to be or what my family wanted me to be, just me. Wyatt took her hand. That's what partners do. They sat together in the darkness, hands linked, watching stars wheel overhead. The legal battle dragged on through the summer. More depositions, more court filings, more lawyers arguing about jurisdiction and standing, and a dozen other technical issues that made Evelyn's head hurt. Hayes was confident they'd win eventually, but the process was grinding. Then, in late July, everything changed. A letter arrived from Mr. Peterson, the family lawyer in Boston. He wrote directly to Evelyn, bypassing all the official legal channels. Dear Mrs. Calloway, it began, I am writing to inform you of recent developments in Boston. Your father suffered a significant stroke 3 weeks ago. He is alive but incapacitated, unable to speak or manage his affairs. Your stepmother Constance has taken control of the family finances and business interests. However, she is facing considerable challenges. Several of your father's business partners have withdrawn their support, citing the scandals surrounding your situation. Investments have failed. The family's social standing has collapsed completely. Caroline's engagement to the Worthington heir was formally dissolved last week. I am writing to you not on their behalf, but as someone who knew your mother and has always wished the best for you. The lawsuit will be dropped, not because they have had a change of heart, but because they can no longer afford to pursue it. The Mercer family is, for all practical purposes, ruined. I thought you should know. Respectfully, E. Peterson. Evelyn read the letter 3 times, trying to process it. Her father, incapacitated. The family business failing. Caroline's engagement broken. Everything they'd valued, reputation, wealth, social position, crumbling. She should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she felt hollow. Wyatt found her sitting at the kitchen table, the letter in her hands. Bad news? I don't know. Maybe. She handed him the letter. He read it quickly. Your family's falling apart. Yes. How do you feel about that? I don't know. I wanted them to face consequences. I wanted them to understand what they'd done. But this, she gestured at the letter. This feels like too much. They brought it on themselves, all of it. I know, but they're still my family. Part of me still... She stopped, struggling to find words. Part of me still wishes it could have been different, that they could have been different. Wyatt sat across from her. You can't fix them, Evelyn. You never could. They made their choices, same as you made yours. I chose better. You did. He pushed the letter back across the table. Question is, what do you do now? You want to reach out? Offer help? Evelyn considered it. She could write to Constance, offer some kind of reconciliation. She could send money, try to repair bridges. It's what the old Evelyn would have done, tried to fix things, make peace, be the bigger person. But she wasn't that Evelyn anymore. No, she said finally. I don't owe them anything. Not help, not forgiveness, not another thought. They're part of my past, not my future. Wyatt nodded. All right then, we move on. We move on. A week later, a telegram arrived from Hayes confirming what Peterson's letter had predicted. The lawsuit had been formally withdrawn. All legal action against Wyatt and Evelyn had been dropped. It was over. That night, the ranch hands insisted on celebrating. Tom produced a bottle of good whiskey he'd been saving. Samuel made his mother's recipe for cornbread. They sat around the kitchen table, drinking and talking late into the night. To Mrs. Calloway, Tom said, raising his glass. Who took on Boston money and won? I didn't win, Evelyn protested. They just ran out of money to keep fighting. Same thing, Samuel said. Not the same thing at all. Close enough, Jack grinned. Either way, you beat them. That's worth drinking too. They drank. Evelyn felt the whiskey warm her throat, her chest, spreading through her like sunlight. She looked around the table at these men who'd become friends, at Wyatt beside her, at the rough kitchen that had become home. Thank you, she said. All of you, for accepting me here, for helping us fight this. You're one of us now, Tom said simply. That's what we do. As August arrived, life on the ranch settled into rhythms that felt almost normal. Evelyn worked alongside Wyatt and the hands, learning more every day about cattle, horses, weather, the thousand small details that kept a ranch running. She treated injuries, a gashed hand from barbed wire, a sprained ankle from a stumble, a fever that turned out to be nothing serious. She kept the books, managed supplies, planned meals, and slowly, carefully, she and Wyatt figured out how to be married. It wasn't smooth. They argued about stupid things, how to organize tools, whether to buy more chickens, the best route to move cattle to winter pasture. Wyatt worked too much and talked too little. Evelyn reorganized things he liked where they were. They got on each other's nerves in the way people do when they're learning to share space. But they also laughed together, worked together, built something together that was stronger than either of them alone. One evening in mid-August, they were sitting on the porch watching the sun set when Evelyn said, "I'm happy." Wyatt looked at her. "Yeah? Yeah, I didn't expect to be, but I am." "Neither did I. Happy, I mean. When I wrote that letter to Boston, I was just looking for help running this place. I wasn't looking for—" He paused. "This. What is this? Partnership? Friendship? Someone who makes me laugh and argues with me and works harder than anyone I've ever met." He looked out at the mountains. "Someone who feels like home." Evelyn reached over and took his hand. "You feel like home too." They sat together as the sky turned from gold to red to purple, the first stars beginning to appear. Somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. The wind carried the scent of sage and pine. "Evelyn?" Wyatt said quietly. "Yeah? I'm glad you stayed." "Me too." The quiet didn't last. 3 days after their conversation on the porch, a rider came hard up the road from town. It was just past dawn, and Evelyn was feeding the chickens when she heard hoofbeats. The rider was young, maybe 16, his horse lathered and breathing hard. "Mrs. Calloway!" he shouted, pulling up short. "Where's Mr. Calloway?" Wyatt emerged from the barn, already moving fast. "What's wrong?" "Fire. The Sullivan Ranch. Started last night, spread to the main house. Martha's husband got her and the kids out, but he went back for their stock records and the roof came down. He's hurt bad." Evelyn dropped the feed bucket. "How bad?" "Real bad, ma'am. They got him to their bunkhouse, but he needs help. Doc's in Denver treating some mining accident. Won't be back for 3 days. Martha sent me to fetch you, said you know medicine." Evelyn was already running for the house. She grabbed her medical kit, the one she'd assembled over the summer from supplies, ordered through the general store, and things she'd made herself. Bandages, laudanum, willow bark, carbolic acid for cleaning wounds, needle, and thread for stitches. Wyatt was saddling 2 horses when she came back out. "Tom, you're in charge here. Samuel, Jack, get over to Sullivan's place and help with whatever they need. Evelyn, you ready?" "Ready?" They rode hard. The Sullivan Ranch was 10 miles north, and they covered it in less than an hour. Smoke was still rising from what was left of the house, just a burned-out shell, blackened timbers, and ash. The barn had survived, and the bunkhouse. People were gathered outside the bunkhouse, neighbors who'd come to help, looking grim. Martha met them at the door. Her face was streaked with soot and tears, her dress torn. "He's inside. I don't know if—" "Let me see him," Evelyn said. Inside the bunkhouse, Daniel Sullivan lay on a cot. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow and rough. His left leg was twisted wrong, clearly broken. Burns covered his arms and part of his face, but worse was the way his chest moved, uneven, labored. Evelyn knelt beside him, examining him quickly. Broken leg, second-degree burns, possible broken ribs, and something else. When she pressed gently on his chest, he flinched even in unconsciousness. Internal injuries, maybe, or his ribs had punctured something vital. "How long has he been like this?" she asked Martha. "Since we pulled him out around midnight. He was conscious at first, talking. Then he went quiet." Evelyn checked his pulse. Weak, but steady. She looked at the burns, bad, but not life-threatening if she could prevent infection. The legs she could set. But the chest injuries, those scared her. "I need clean water, as much as you can boil. Cloth for bandages, and I need everyone except Martha and Wyatt to clear out. Give us room to work." The bunkhouse emptied. Evelyn laid out her supplies, organizing them the way she'd learned from years of trial and error. She cleaned the burns first, working as gently as she could, applying salve made from comfrey and honey. Daniel stirred, but didn't wake. "The leg next," she told Wyatt. I need you to hold him steady while I set it. This is going to hurt him even unconscious." Wyatt positioned himself at Daniel's shoulders. Evelyn gripped the broken leg, felt for the break, and pulled. The bone shifted with a grinding sound that made her stomach turn. Daniel gasped, his eyes flying open in pain. "Hold him," Evelyn said sharply. Wyatt pressed down on Daniel's shoulders while Martha grabbed his other arm. Evelyn worked fast, setting the bone, splinting it with boards and torn cloth. Daniel was screaming now, a raw sound of agony. She hated causing him pain, but there was no choice. The leg had to be set, or he'd never walk right again. Finally, it was done. Daniel slumped back, unconscious again, his face gray with shock. "The ribs now," Evelyn said, her hands shaking slightly. This was the part that terrified her. She didn't have the knowledge or tools to fix internal bleeding. If his ribs had punctured a lung or torn something vital, there was nothing she could do. She pressed carefully along his chest, feeling for breaks, for anything obviously wrong. 3 ribs were cracked, maybe 4, but nothing felt like it had shifted inward. Nothing felt like it had torn through tissue. "I think he's lucky," she said quietly. "Broken, but not displaced. If we bind his chest and keep him still, he might heal." "Might?" Martha's voice cracked. "I'm not a doctor, Martha. I'm doing the best I can." I know. Martha wiped her eyes. "Just tell me what to do." They wrapped Daniel's chest tightly, gave him laudanum for the pain, cleaned and dressed his burns. By the time they finished, it was mid-morning and Evelyn was exhausted, her hands cramping from the careful work. "He needs to stay still," she told Martha. "No moving, no sitting up. Keep giving him water when he wakes, small sips. Watch the burns for infection. If they start looking red or oozing pus, send for me immediately. And the leg, it needs to stay immobilized for at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks? At least. Maybe longer. He won't be able to work." Martha looked around the bunkhouse, at what was left of her home, at her unconscious husband. "We can't afford. The house is gone. Winter's coming. I don't know how—" "We'll figure it out," Wyatt said firmly. "The community will help. That's what we do." Over the next few days, the neighbors proved him right. Men came to help clear the burned house, salvage what could be saved. Women brought food, supplies, offers to take the Sullivan children until Martha could manage. Wyatt organized a work crew to start rebuilding. Nothing fancy, just a basic structure that would get the family through winter. Evelyn rode to the Sullivan place every day to check on Daniel. His fever spiked on the 3rd day, his burns showing signs of infection. She cleaned them again, applied fresh salve, forced him to drink willow bark tea for the fever. On the 5th day, the fever broke. On the 7th day, he woke up lucid and asked what had happened. "You went back for the records," Martha told him, gripping his hand. "The roof came down." Daniel looked at his splinted leg, his bandaged arms. "Did you get them? The records?" "They burned. Everything burned. Hell." He closed his eyes. "All that work. Gone." "You're alive, but—" Martha said fiercely. "That's what matters." By late September, Daniel was healing well enough to sit up and complain about being bedridden, which Evelyn took as a good sign. The new house was taking shape, rough but functional. The community had come together in the way frontier communities did when someone was down, everyone contributing what they could. But the incident had shaken something loose in Evelyn. She'd saved Daniel's life, probably. But she'd also been terrified the entire time, aware of how little she actually knew, how much she was guessing. If his injuries had been worse, if the ribs had punctured his lung, if infection had spread faster than she could treat it, he would have died, and there would have been nothing she could do. "You did good," Wyatt told her one evening as they rode back from Sullivan's place. "Better than any doctor could have done in the same situation." "I got lucky. That's different from being good." "You saved his life." "Maybe. Or maybe he would have survived anyway, and I just made him more comfortable." Evelyn looked out at the darkening mountains. "I need to learn more. Real medical knowledge, not just what I picked up nursing my mother. If I'm going to be the only person within 20 miles who knows anything about medicine, I need to actually know something." "How do you plan to do that? Medical school won't take women." "I know, but there are books. Correspondence courses. Other doctors I could write to for advice." She'd been thinking about this since Daniel's accident, turning it over in her mind. "I want to be useful, really useful, not just lucky." Wyatt was quiet for a moment. All right. Order whatever books you need. We'll figure out the cost. It might be expensive. I don't care. If you want to learn, you should learn. Evelyn ordered medical texts from catalogs, wrote to doctors in Denver and San Francisco asking for recommendations. Books started arriving, heavy volumes on anatomy, surgery, pharmacology. She read them at night by lamplight, memorizing bone structures and muscle groups, learning which herbs treated which ailments, studying surgical techniques she'd probably never use but wanted to understand. The ranch hands thought she was crazy. Tom walked in on her one evening with a medical diagram of a dissected torso spread across the kitchen table. That's disturbing, he said, backing away slowly. It's educational. It's a drawing of someone's insides. How else am I supposed to learn where everything goes? Tom shook his head. You're a strange woman, Mrs. Calloway. Thank you. As autumn deepened, word spread about what Evelyn had done for Daniel Sullivan. Other ranchers started coming to her with injuries and illnesses. A hand crushed in a gate, a child with persistent cough, a woman with complications from childbirth. Evelyn treated them all, charging nothing, just asking that people spread the word about what worked and what didn't. She was building a reputation. The mail-order bride who'd become the territory's unofficial doctor. It wasn't official, wasn't legal, but it was real. People trusted her. They came to her when they were hurt or scared, and she did everything she could to help. One cold October morning, a woman Evelyn had never met arrived at the ranch. She was young, maybe 25, riding a tired horse and looking exhausted. Mrs. Calloway, my name is Anna Chen. I'm Sarah's cousin. She said you might be able to help me. Evelyn recognized the name, Sarah Chen, who'd come to her pre-wedding gathering, who ran the sheep operation in the valley. Come inside, what's wrong? Anna followed her into the kitchen, accepted coffee, and then started crying. The story came out in pieces. She'd come west 6 months ago to marry a man who'd seemed decent in his letters. But he'd turned cruel after the wedding, violent, controlling. She'd tried to leave twice, and both times he'd found her and dragged her back. Now she was pregnant, scared, with nowhere to go. Sarah said you stood up to your family, that you fought back when they tried to control you. I thought, maybe you'd understand. Evelyn set down her coffee cup carefully. Where's your husband now? In town. He thinks I'm visiting Sarah. I told him I'd be back tonight. Are you going back? I don't know. I don't have anywhere else to go. Evelyn looked at this frightened young woman and saw herself 6 months ago, trapped, desperate, convinced there were no options. But there were always options. They just weren't easy. You can stay here, Evelyn said, as long as you need. Anna's eyes went wide. I couldn't. My husband will agree with me. You can stay in the guest room. We'll figure out the rest as we go. When Wyatt came in for lunch, Evelyn explained the situation. He listened without interrupting, his face getting progressively darker. She's staying, he said when Evelyn finished. And if her husband comes looking for her, he can talk to me. Anna stayed. That first night, she barely spoke, jumping at every sound. But over the next few days, she started relaxing. She helped Evelyn with cooking and cleaning, worked in the garden, slowly started talking about her life before the marriage. I thought I was making a good choice, she said one afternoon, while helping Evelyn preserve vegetables for winter. He had land, resources. He seemed kind in his letters. People can lie in letters. I should have known better. The warning signs were there. Anna's hand stilled on the jar she was filling. My family tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. I thought I knew better. We all think we know better until we learn otherwise. Evelyn sealed a jar of pickled beans. The question is, what do you want to do now? I want a divorce. I want him out of my life permanently. That won't be easy. Colorado law requires grounds: adultery, abandonment, cruelty. I have grounds. He's hit me more times than I can count. Can you prove it? Anna pulled up her sleeve, showing bruises in various stages of healing: yellow, green, purple. Is this enough proof? It should be. We'll talk to Hayes, see what he says. Anna's husband, a rancher named William Porter, showed up 3 days later. He rode in fast and angry, demanding to see his wife. Wyatt met him in the yard, and Evelyn watched from the porch. She's not here, Wyatt said flatly. Don't lie to me, Calloway. I know she came here. Someone in town saw her riding this direction. Even if she was here, what makes you think I'd hand her over to you? Porter's face went red. She's my wife. You've got no right to keep her from me. She's a person. She's got a right to be wherever she wants. This isn't your business. You made it my business when you drove your wife to run away. Wyatt crossed his arms. Leave. Don't come back. Porter looked past Wyatt to the house, his eyes searching. Anna, get out here now. Inside, Anna flinched. Evelyn put a hand on her shoulder. Stay inside. Don't let him see you. I'll get the sheriff, Porter threatened. I'll get a court order. Do that, Wyatt said. Until then, get off my property. Porter left, but they all knew he'd be back. Hayes confirmed it when they rode into town the next day. Porter had filed a complaint claiming Wyatt was harboring his wife illegally, interfering with his marital rights. It's nonsense, Hayes said, but he can make it stick long enough to cause problems. We need to move fast. File for divorce on Anna's behalf, document the abuse, get a protection order. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months. Judges don't like dissolving marriages without clear cause. She has clear cause. Look at her arms. Hayes did, his mouth set in a hard line. I'll do everything I can, but Porter has friends in town, some influence. This won't be clean. It wasn't. Porter rallied support from other men who believed wives belonged to their husbands, period. He spread rumors that Anna was unfaithful, that Evelyn was corrupting her, that Wyatt was interfering in matters that didn't concern him. The town split, some supporting Anna's right to leave an abusive marriage, others insisting that marriage vows were sacred and wives needed to submit. The tension came to a head in early November. Porter showed up at the ranch again, this time with 3 friends. They were drunk, angry, and convinced they had the right to take Anna back by force. Wyatt met them with a rifle. Turn around and leave. I won't ask twice. Porter laughed, the sound ugly. You're going to shoot me over someone else's wife? I'm going to shoot you if you take one more step toward my house. There's 4 of us and 1 of you, Calloway. You can't stop all of us. From the barn, Tom appeared with a shotgun. Samuel and Jack flanked him, both armed. The odds had just shifted. There's 4 of us too, Tom said calmly, and we're sober. Want to test which side wins that fight? Porter's friends looked less confident. One of them backed up a step. Will, maybe we should Shut up. Porter glared at Wyatt. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Go home. Don't come back. They left. But the threat hung in the air, heavy and dark. That night, Wyatt insisted everyone sleep in the main house. He and the ranch hands took turns keeping watch, rifles loaded and ready. Anna was shaking. I'm sorry. I've brought this trouble on all of you. You didn't bring anything, Evelyn said firmly. He did. This is his choice. His violence. Not yours. The next morning, Marshal Garrett rode out to the ranch. He looked tired and frustrated. I heard about yesterday. Porter's claiming you threatened him. He came onto my property drunk and threatening, Wyatt said. I defended my home. I know, I believe you, but there are people in town pushing for me to do something, arrest you for interfering, force Anna to go back to her husband. Garrett looked at Anna. You really want a divorce? Yes. He hit you? Many times. You willing to testify to that in court? Anna hesitated, fear flickering across her face. Then she straightened. Yes. Garrett nodded. All right, I'll talk to the judge, expedite the hearing, but you need to be ready for this to get ugly. Porter's not going to give up easy. The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Anna prepared her testimony, documenting every instance of violence she could remember. Evelyn helped her practice, playing the role of hostile attorney, asking brutal questions so nothing would surprise her. Why didn't you leave sooner? I was scared. Of what? Of him killing me. He threatened to more than once. Did you provoke him? Anna's voice stayed steady. No. He hit me because he wanted to, because he could. The day of the hearing arrived cold and clear. The courtroom in Copper Ridge was packed, supporters on both sides, curious townspeople, reporters from Denver who'd gotten wind of another scandalous frontier story. Evelyn sat beside Anna, holding her hand. Wyatt sat behind them, his presence solid and reassuring. Porter's attorney was smooth, expensive, probably paid for by family money. He painted Anna as a wayward wife, seduced by dangerous ideas about independence, corrupted by Evelyn Calloway's bad example. "Mrs. Porter," he said, his tone dripping false sympathy, "isn't it true that you only sought divorce after meeting Mrs. Calloway?" "No. I wanted to leave months before I met her." "But you only acted after her influence." "I acted after I realized I didn't have to die to escape." That stopped him. He regrouped quickly. "Your husband is a respected rancher. My husband beats me. There's nothing respectable about that." Hayes stood. "Your Honor, Mrs. Porter has documented evidence of abuse. Bruises, broken bones treated by Dr. Morrison in town, witness statements from neighbors who heard her screaming. This isn't a case of a difficult marriage. This is a case of sustained violence." The judge, an older man named Thomas Wheeler, examined the evidence Hayes presented. He looked at the photographs of Anna's bruises, read the doctor's statement, listened to testimony from a neighbor who'd seen Porter drag Anna by her hair across their yard. "Mr. Porter," Judge Wheeler said finally, "do you dispute these allegations?" Porter's attorney started to speak, but Porter interrupted. "She needed discipline. That's a husband's right." The courtroom went silent. "Discipline," the judge repeated flatly. "She wouldn't listen, wouldn't obey. A man has a right to control his own household. By beating his wife unconscious? That's what the medical report indicates happened at least twice." "That's exaggerated." Judge Wheeler set down the papers. "I've heard enough. The divorce is granted. Mrs. Porter is free to go. Mr. Porter, you are ordered to stay at least 100 yards away from your former wife at all times. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest." The courtroom erupted. Porter's supporters shouted protests. Anna collapsed against Evelyn, sobbing with relief. The judge banged his gavel until order was restored. Outside the courthouse, Porter was waiting. He grabbed Anna's arm as she passed, yanking her close. "You think you've won? You're nothing without me. You'll come crawling back." Wyatt hit him. One clean punch that sent Porter sprawling in the dirt. Before Porter could get up, Wyatt was standing over him. "She's free of you. Stay away from her. Stay away from my ranch, or next time I won't stop at one punch." Marshal Garrett appeared, pulling Wyatt back. "That's enough." He grabbed her. "I saw. Porter, get out of here before I arrest you for violating the judge's order. It's been 5 minutes and you're already breaking it." Porter staggered to his feet, blood running from his nose. He looked at Anna with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Anna said, her voice stronger than Evelyn had ever heard it. "You don't own me anymore. You never will again." They left Porter standing in the street and went back to the ranch. That night, Anna cried for hours. Relief, exhaustion, years of fear finally breaking loose. Evelyn sat with her, not saying anything, just being present. "Thank you," Anna said finally, "for everything, for taking me in, for fighting for me. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to repay anything. Just live your life, be free. That's enough." Anna stayed at the ranch through winter. She helped with everything: cooking, cleaning, tending animals, working beside Evelyn to treat injuries and illnesses that came through their door. In the spring, she bought a small piece of land near the Chen family property and started her own sheep operation. She visited often, bringing wool and cheese, helping with difficult cases when Evelyn needed extra hands. She built a life, a real one, on her own terms. By December, the mountains were buried in snow and the ranch had settled into winter routines. The cattle were in the lower pastures where they could be fed and monitored. The hands were busy with repairs and maintenance. Evelyn spent long hours reading medical texts by the fire, making notes, writing to doctors with questions. One evening, Wyatt found her asleep at the kitchen table, a book on surgical procedures open in front of her. He covered her with a blanket and sat across from her, just watching her sleep. When she woke an hour later, he was still there. "How long have you been sitting there?" she asked, groggy. "A while. You were snoring." "I don't snore." "You do." "Sounds like a small bear." Evelyn threw a wadded-up piece of paper at him. He caught it, grinning. "I've been thinking," he said more seriously, "about what you're doing, the medicine, helping people like Anna. You're good at it, better than good." "I'm learning. That's not the same as being good." "You saved Daniel's life. You helped Anna escape an abusive husband. You've treated probably 50 people in the last 6 months. That's not just learning, that's making a real difference." Evelyn looked down at her book. "I want to do more. I want to be better. There's so much I don't know. Then keep learning. I'll support you however I can. Wyatt stood, stretching. But for tonight, come to bed. You'll go blind reading by lamplight all night. 5 more pages. You said that an hour ago. This time I mean it. He shook his head, but he was smiling. Stubborn woman. You married me knowing that. Best decision I ever made. Evelyn looked up at him, this rough frontier rancher who'd taken a chance on the wrong sister and found something better than he'd imagined. Best decision I ever made, too. Winter deepened, bringing temperatures that dropped below zero and storms that buried the ranch in snow. But inside the house, the fire stayed warm, the pantry stayed full, and Evelyn and Wyatt built their life together one day at a time, fighting, laughing, working, learning how to be partners in every way that mattered. The letter arrived in late January, 6 months after Evelyn had sent her final message to Boston, severing all ties. The envelope was expensive cream paper, the handwriting shaky but unmistakably her father's. Evelyn stared at it for a full minute before opening it, her hands cold despite the fire blazing in the kitchen stove. Wyatt was outside checking on the cattle with Tom. The house was quiet except for the wind rattling the windows and the pop of burning wood. Evelyn slit the envelope open with a knife and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. The first was from her father. The handwriting wandered across the page, some words barely legible. The aftermath of his stroke, she realized. Evelyn, I am writing this myself, though it takes me hours. Your stepmother does not know. I want you to understand something before I die, which the doctors say will be soon. I was a coward. I let Constance treat you badly because it was easier than fighting her. I let her send you away as a joke because I did not want the conflict. I told myself you were strong enough to handle it. That was a lie I believed because it was convenient. You deserved better. You deserved a father who protected you. I failed. I do not ask forgiveness. I only want you to know that I see clearly now what I refused to see then. You were never the problem. We were. I hope you have found happiness in Colorado. I hope you have found people who see your worth. Charles Mercer. Evelyn read it twice, her throat tight. An apology. After everything, an actual apology. She didn't know what to feel. Anger that it had taken this long, sadness that it had required his impending death, or something close to relief that he'd finally admitted the truth. The second letter was from Caroline. The handwriting was still perfect, but the tone was different than the cruel note she'd sent months ago. Evelyn, mother is selling everything. The house, father's business interests, whatever hasn't already been lost. She's planning to move to Philadelphia to live with her sister. She asked me to come with her. I refused. I've taken a position as a governess with a family in New York. It's not glamorous. The pay is barely adequate. But it's mine. I'm learning what you already knew, that beauty and status mean nothing if you have no control over your own life. I was cruel to you. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. Caroline. Evelyn set both letters down, her hands shaking slightly. Her father was dying. Her stepmother was ruined. Caroline was working as a governess, living the kind of life Constance had once mocked as beneath them. The family that had cast her out had completely fallen apart. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she just felt tired. When Wyatt came in for lunch, she handed him the letters without comment. He read them slowly, then set them on the table. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty, maybe? Or just done? I spent so many years being angry at them, and now that they're all suffering consequences, I don't feel anything. That's probably healthy. Is it? Or is it cold? Wyatt poured coffee for both of them, considering. I think it means you've moved on, really moved on. They can't hurt you anymore because they don't matter enough to hurt you. Evelyn wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Should I write back? My father's dying. Caroline apologized. Do you want to? That was the question, wasn't it? Did she want to open that door again, even slightly? Did she want to offer forgiveness or comfort or any kind of reconciliation? No, she said finally. I don't. Whatever we were to each other, it's over. They're part of a life I don't live anymore. Then don't write back. You don't owe them anything. Evelyn tucked both letters into the stove and watched them burn. The paper curled and blackened, her father's shaky handwriting and Caroline's perfect script turning to ash. When they were gone completely, she felt something loosen in her chest. The last thread connecting her to Boston, to the Mercer family, to the girl she'd been. All of it gone. "I'm done now," she said, really done. Wyatt kissed the top of her head. "Good." February brought a crisis that pushed everything else from Evelyn's mind. A scarlet fever outbreak hit 3 ranches south of Copper Ridge. Children were dying. Families were quarantining themselves, too scared to seek help, spreading the disease further through isolation and ignorance. Evelyn heard about it when Martha Sullivan rode to the ranch, her face grim. "It's bad. The Hendersons lost both their kids yesterday. The Pratt's daughter is burning up with fever. Doc's overwhelmed. He's got 12 critical cases and more coming every day. He's asking for help, anyone with medical knowledge." Evelyn was already grabbing her coat. "Where?" "The temporary hospital they set up in the church. But Evelyn, it's contagious. You could get sick. You could die." "Then I'll be careful. But I can't sit here doing nothing while children die." Wyatt caught her arm. "Martha's right. Scarlet fever kills adults too. I know the risks." "Evelyn," she turned to face him fully, "this is what I've been training for. Learning medicine, studying diseases, preparing to help when people need it. I can't just read about it in books. I have to actually do it." Wyatt looked at her for a long moment. "If you're going, I'm coming too. Extra hands, even if I'm just hauling water or cleaning. You could get sick. So could you. We'll risk it together." The church in Copper Ridge had been transformed into a makeshift hospital. Cots lined the walls, most of them occupied by fevered, delirious patients. Children mostly, but some adults too. The air was thick with the smell of sickness, sweat, vomit, the sour odor of infection. Dr. Morrison was moving between patients, his face haggard with exhaustion. "Mrs. Calloway, thank heavens. I need someone who can think clearly and follow instructions." He gestured at the chaos. "I've got 23 patients, 4 critical. The key is keeping the fever down and preventing complications. Rheumatic fever, kidney damage, pneumonia. I need you to manage the non-critical cases while I focus on the worst ones." Evelyn rolled up her sleeves. "Tell me what to do." For the next 3 days, she barely slept. She sponged down fevered children, forced water and medicine down unwilling throats, monitored breathing and heartbeats, cleaned up endless messes. She learned to recognize the signs of complications, the specific rash that meant kidney involvement, the labored breathing that signaled pneumonia, the confusion that indicated the fever was affecting the brain. 2 more children died despite everything. Evelyn held one of them, a 6-year-old boy named Matthew, while he took his last breath. His mother was quarantined at home with the disease herself, unable to be there. Evelyn sang to him softly, stroked his hair, made sure he wasn't alone. When he died, she carried his small body to the back room where they were keeping the dead until families could claim them. She laid him down gently, covering him with a clean sheet. Then she went outside and vomited in the snow, her whole body shaking. Wyatt found her there. He didn't say anything, just pulled her against his chest and held her while she cried. "I couldn't save him. I tried everything Morrison taught me, and it wasn't enough." "You did everything you could. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes people die anyway." "I hate it." "I know." She went back inside and kept working. By the end of the week, the outbreak was under control. 18 of the 23 patients survived. It could have been worse. Morrison said without Evelyn's help, they would have lost at least 5 more. But Evelyn couldn't focus on the ones who lived. She kept seeing Matthew's face, kept feeling the moment his breathing stopped. "You're going to drive yourself crazy thinking like that," Morrison told her as they cleaned the church after the last patient had gone home. "In medicine, you can't save everyone. The sooner you accept that, the better." "How do you accept it?" "You remember that the ones you did save wouldn't be alive without you. You focus on that." He handed her a pile of clean linens to put away. "You've got real talent for this, Mrs. Calloway. Natural instincts, good hands, and you don't panic under pressure. Ever thought about becoming a real doctor?" "Women can't go to medical school." "Some can. There are schools back east that take women now. Not many, but a few. Or you could apprentice with me, learn through practice. It wouldn't be official, but you'd have the knowledge." Evelyn looked at him. "You'd teach me?" "You just worked 3 days straight without complaining, saved multiple lives, and handled situations that would make most men faint. Yes, I'd teach you. Territory needs more doctors anyway, and I'm not getting any younger. I'd have to talk to my husband. Talk to him, but think about it. You're good at this, really good. It would be a waste not to pursue it. That night, exhausted and still processing everything, Evelyn told Wyatt about Morrison's offer. He wants to train you as a doctor? Not officially. I couldn't practice legally, couldn't call myself a doctor, but I'd have the knowledge, the skills. I could help people properly instead of just guessing. Wyatt was quiet, thinking. How would it work? You'd have to spend time with him, learning. That means less time here. I know. And I know the ranch needs me. If you say no, I'll understand. I'm not saying no. I'm asking how we make it work. He poured whiskey for both of them. They'd earned it. We could hire someone to help with the house. Martha's daughter is looking for work, and the ranch hands are capable of handling most things. You should do this. You mean that? You saved lives this week, Evelyn. Real lives. Children who would have died without you. That matters more than whether the kitchen is organized or if dinner's on time. He looked at her seriously. I married you because I needed a partner. That doesn't mean I own you or get to decide what you do with your talents. If you want to learn medicine. I'll support you. Evelyn felt tears threatening again, exhaustion and relief and gratitude all tangled together. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me you'll be careful. Don't take risks you don't have to take. I promise. She started apprenticing with Morrison in March. 2 days a week, she rode into town and spent the day at his office, learning sutures and surgical techniques, studying anatomy from real bodies when the opportunity arose, practicing diagnosis on actual patients instead of just reading about symptoms in books. Morrison was a tough teacher, quick to correct mistakes, but fair. He pushed her hard because he saw what she could become. The rest of the week, she worked the ranch, treated neighbors who came seeking help, and slowly built a reputation as someone who actually knew what she was doing. People started calling her Doc Calloway, even though it wasn't official. It made Morrison laugh. You're stealing my title and you haven't even finished training. Blame your patients. They're the ones calling me that. They trust you. That's half of medicine right there, getting people to trust you enough to follow your advice. In May, Anna Chen showed up at the ranch with news. She was engaged, getting married to a sheep herder from Wyoming she'd met at a market in Denver. He was quiet, kind, and had already made it clear he'd never raise a hand to her in anger. I wanted you to be the first to know, Anna told Evelyn. After what you did for me, helping me escape, fighting for my divorce, I wouldn't be here without you. I'd probably be dead. You saved yourself. I just gave you a safe place to do it. That's more than anyone else did. Anna hugged her tightly. Thank you for everything. The wedding was small, held at Anna's property with just close friends. Evelyn stood beside her as she married a man who looked at her with respect and gentleness. Watching them exchange vows, Evelyn thought about how much could change in a year. Anna had gone from a terrified woman, running from abuse, to someone building a new life on her own terms. It was possible. People could escape bad situations and create something better. Not easily, not without help, but possible. Summer brought different challenges. A drought settled over the territory, turning pastures brown and drying up creeks. Cattle suffered. Ranchers fought over water rights. Tempers ran hot in the brutal heat. One afternoon, a fight broke out at the general store between two ranchers arguing over access to a shared water source. By the time someone broke it up, one man had a broken nose and the other had a knife wound in his shoulder. They brought both men to Evelyn. She treated the knife wound first. It was deep but hadn't hit anything vital. She cleaned it, stitched it, warned the man about infection. Then she reset the other man's nose, a procedure that hurt him more than the original injury. You two are idiots, she told them when she finished. Fighting over water when you should be working together to conserve it. He took more than his share. I don't care who took what. You're neighbors. You're supposed to help each other, not stab each other over creek water. She looked between them. The drought's going to get worse before it gets better. You can keep fighting, or you can figure out how to share resources fairly. Your choice. But if you come back here with more injuries from stupidity, I'm charging you double. They left shamefaced. Tom, who'd witnessed the whole thing, was grinning. You're terrifying when you're angry. I'm tired of grown men acting like children. We're all struggling with the drought. Fighting each other doesn't help. The drought did get worse. By August, some of the smaller ranchers were talking about selling out, moving somewhere with more reliable water. Wyatt called a community meeting to discuss cooperation, sharing water sources, coordinating grazing to prevent overuse, helping each other through the crisis. "We survived this by working together," he told the assembled ranchers, "not by fighting over scraps." It took hours of argument and negotiation, but they eventually agreed on a plan. Evelyn watched Wyatt manage the discussion, firm but fair, pushing people to compromise, refusing to let the conversation devolve into accusations. This was leadership, she realized, not the performative kind her father had practiced in Boston, but real leadership that required doing hard work for the community's benefit. In September, the rains finally came. Not a lot, but enough to green up the pastures and refill the creeks. The territory breathed a collective sigh of relief. Cattle started recovering. The crisis passed. One evening in late October, Evelyn was reading a medical text on the porch when a rider approached. It was a young woman, maybe 20, riding hard and looking panicked. "Mrs. Calloway, I'm Beth Harrison. My mother's having a baby and something's wrong. Dr. Morrison's in Denver at a conference. We don't know what to do." Evelyn was already moving. "How long has she been in labor?" "Since yesterday morning. The baby won't come. She's exhausted, bleeding. My father's scared she's going to die." Evelyn grabbed her medical bag, told Wyatt where she was going, and rode out with Beth. The Harrison Ranch was 15 miles away, and they covered the distance at a gallop. When they arrived, Evelyn could hear screaming from inside the house. Mrs. Harrison was on the bed, her face gray with exhaustion and pain. The midwife who'd been helping looked relieved to see Evelyn. "The baby's stuck, turned wrong. I've tried everything I know." Evelyn examined Mrs. Harrison quickly. The baby was breech, feet first instead of head first. She'd read about breech births, had even watched Morrison perform one, but she'd never done it herself. Her hands were shaking as she washed them in carbolic acid solution. "I need clean towels, hot water, and everyone except the midwife out of this room. Now." The room cleared. Evelyn looked at the midwife, an older woman named Ruth who'd been delivering babies for 30 years. "Have you done a breech birth?" "3 times. Lost 2 mothers and 1 baby. They're dangerous." "I know." Evelyn took a breath, steadying herself. "But if we don't try, she'll die for certain. Help me." Between them, they maneuvered the baby carefully, working with contractions instead of against them. It was brutal, exhausting work. Mrs. Harrison screamed until her voice gave out. Blood soaked through towels faster than they could replace them. Evelyn's arms ached from the careful manipulation, and sweat poured down her face. "Almost there," Ruth encouraged. "One more push. Come on, Margaret. One more." Mrs. Harrison pushed. The baby's body emerged. First the feet, then the torso, then finally, carefully, the head. Evelyn caught the infant as it was born, a tiny girl covered in blood and vernix, not breathing. "No," Evelyn whispered. She cleared the baby's mouth and nose, rubbed her chest, willed her to breathe. "Come on! Come on!" Nothing. Evelyn put her mouth over the baby's nose and mouth and blew gently. She'd read about this technique in one of her medical texts. Artificial respiration. Once, twice, 3 times. The baby gasped, then coughed, then started crying, a thin, angry wail that was the most beautiful sound Evelyn had ever heard. "She's breathing," Ruth said, tears streaming down her face. "You did it." Evelyn handed the baby to Ruth and turned back to Mrs. Harrison, who was still bleeding heavily. She delivered the afterbirth, checked for tears that needed stitching, worked to control the hemorrhaging. By the time she was done, she was shaking with exhaustion and the aftermath of adrenaline. Mrs. Harrison would survive. So would the baby. Both of them alive because Evelyn had known what to do and had trusted herself to do it. Mr. Harrison tried to pay her. She refused. "Just make sure your wife rests, and if there's any fever, any unusual pain, send for me immediately." Riding back to the ranch as dawn broke, Evelyn felt something settle inside her. This was what she was meant to do, not manage a house or host parties or be decorative. Save lives, help people through their hardest moments. Use her hands and mind to make real, tangible differences. When she got home, Wyatt was waiting on the porch. He took one look at her, exhausted, covered in blood, but smiling, and pulled her into his arms. "Successful?" "Both alive. Mother and baby." "You're incredible," I'm tired, and I need a bath. I'll heat the water. A week later, Morrison told her she was done with her apprenticeship. You know enough now to practice independently. You'll keep learning, we all do, but you're ready. I'm not a licensed doctor. In most ways that matter, you are. The territory recognizes me as the official physician, but everyone knows you're the one people call for emergencies. That's not going to change. So what does that make me? A frontier doctor, same as half the physicians out here. Trained through experience, trusted because you're good at what you do. He smiled. Welcome to the profession, Doc Calloway. Winter came again, the second one since Evelyn had arrived in Colorado. But this winter felt different. She wasn't a stranger anymore, wasn't the mail-order bride who'd been sent as a joke. She was Doc Calloway, the woman who'd saved Daniel Sullivan, who'd fought a scarlet fever outbreak, who delivered Beth Harrison's breech baby. She was part of the community, essential to it. On Christmas Eve, the ranch hands and several neighboring families gathered at the Calloway house for dinner. It had become tradition, everyone bringing food, eating together, sharing stories and warmth in the dead of winter. Evelyn cooked for 2 days preparing, and the table groaned under the weight of roasted meat, bread, pies, everything anyone had contributed. After dinner, people lingered around the fire, talking and laughing. Martha Sullivan raised a glass. To Evelyn and Wyatt Calloway, for building something real out here, for showing the rest of us what partnership looks like. People cheered and drank. Evelyn felt Wyatt's hand find hers under the table, squeezing gently. Later, after everyone had gone home, they sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching snow fall in the darkness. Do you ever regret it? Evelyn asked. Getting me instead of Caroline? Every day, Wyatt said seriously. Evelyn's heart dropped. I regret that I wasted time wanting something I didn't need. I regret that I almost missed out on this because I was too stupid to see what was right in front of me. He turned to face her. Caroline would have left after the first week. She couldn't have survived here. But you thrived. You became something I never could have imagined. So no, I don't regret getting you instead of her. I regret that I ever wanted anyone but you. Evelyn kissed him, tasting snow and whiskey and home. I love you, she said. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. I love you too. In January, a package arrived from New York. Inside was a note from Caroline and a photograph. The photo showed Caroline in a simple dress, standing with 3 children who were clearly her charges. She looked different, less polished, but more real. Happy, maybe. The note was brief. I'm learning what real work means, what real value means. You were right about everything. I hope you're well. I hope you're happy. I hope someday I can become half the person you are. Caroline. Evelyn showed the photo to Wyatt. She looks good. She does. You going to write back? Evelyn thought about it. A year ago, she would have said no immediately, but Caroline had apologized, had admitted she was wrong, was trying to build a better life. That took courage. Maybe. Eventually. Not yet, but maybe. Your choice. Always my choice. That's the difference between now and then. In March, Evelyn discovered she was pregnant. She'd suspected for a few weeks but hadn't said anything until she was certain. When she told Wyatt, his face went through a dozen emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, fear, joy, terror again. A baby! We're having a baby! Yes. Do you want? Yes, I want this. Do you? Yes, absolutely yes. He pulled her close, careful like she might break. Are you scared? Terrified, but also excited. We'll figure it out, same way we figured out everything else. The pregnancy was difficult. Evelyn was sick for months, exhausted, unable to work as much as she wanted. It frustrated her. She'd built this practice, this reputation, and now her own body was preventing her from maintaining it. But Morrison covered for her, and the community was patient, bringing casseroles and offers to help with household work. You're having a baby, not dying, Martha told her firmly. Let people help. In September, Evelyn went into labor. It was long, painful, and terrifying in ways she hadn't expected. Knowing the medical details didn't make experiencing them any less scary. Ruth the midwife was there, along with Morrison, who'd insisted on being present just in case. 20 hours of labor. Then finally, a cry. A son. Wyatt held him with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. He's perfect. He's wrinkly and covered in goo. He's perfect, Wyatt repeated stubbornly. They named him James, after Wyatt's father. He was colicky and demanding and disrupted every routine they'd established. Evelyn walked the floors at night, exhausted and overwhelmed, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake trying to balance motherhood and medicine. But watching Wyatt with their son, gentle despite his rough hands, patient despite his usual gruffness, she realized they'd figure this out too. Maybe not perfectly, probably not smoothly, but they'd manage because that's what they did. By James's first birthday, Evelyn had returned to her medical practice part-time. She couldn't handle as many cases as before, couldn't be gone for days during epidemics, but she could treat injuries, deliver babies, provide the care the community needed. It wasn't everything she'd planned, but it was enough. One afternoon in May, 2 years after she'd arrived in Colorado, Evelyn was in the garden with James when a fancy carriage appeared on the road. Her stomach clenched. Had Boston found her again? But when the carriage stopped, it was Anna Chen who emerged, dressed in nice clothes and looking prosperous. Behind her was her husband and their 6-month-old daughter. Evelyn, I hoped you'd be home. They embraced, and Evelyn invited them inside. Over tea, Anna explained that her sheep operation had grown successful, that she and her husband were doing well, that life was good. I came to tell you something. We're starting a fund. Me, Sarah, Martha Sullivan, a few others. Money to help women leave bad situations. Enough for train fare, lawyer fees, a few months of living expenses while they get established. We're calling it the Callaway Fund. Evelyn blinked. You're naming it after me? You saved my life. You proved it's possible to escape, to build something new. Other women need to know that too. We figured, why not honor the woman who showed us it could be done? Evelyn felt tears threatening. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help us. Advise women who come to you. Provide medical care if they need it. Be the example you've always been. Of course, always. After Anna left, Evelyn stood on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains. James was napping inside. Wyatt was in the barn with Tom, repairing tack. The ranch spread out around her, rough, beautiful, hard, home. She thought about the girl she'd been 2 years ago, standing on that train platform in Boston, convinced she was being sent to humiliation. That girl had been so scared, so convinced she was worthless, so certain she'd never amount to anything because she wasn't beautiful enough, refined enough, wanted enough. But that girl had been wrong about everything. Worth wasn't measured in beauty or status or how much a family valued you. It was measured in what you built, who you helped, how you treated people when they were at their weakest. It was measured in choices, to stay when leaving would be easier, to fight when surrendering would be safer, to learn when ignorance would be more comfortable. Evelyn had built a life here, not a perfect life. There were still hard days, still moments of doubt, still struggles with balancing motherhood and medicine and marriage. But it was hers, really, truly hers. She'd chosen it, shaped it, defended it against everyone who tried to take it from her. The unwanted daughter had become a wanted wife, a trusted doctor, a respected member of the community. She'd become essential, not because of her family name or her appearance or any external validation, but because of who she'd chosen to become. Wyatt came to stand beside her, sliding an arm around her waist. What are you thinking about? About how far we've come, how different everything is from what I expected. Better or worse? So much better, harder, but better. Any regrets? Evelyn looked out at the mountains, at the land that had tested her and shaped her and made her stronger than she'd ever imagined possible. Not a single one. Inside the house, James started crying, hungry or wet or just wanting attention. Evelyn kissed Wyatt and went to tend to their son, stepping into the warm kitchen where dinner was cooking and medical texts were stacked on the table and a life she'd built herself was waiting. She picked up James, settling him against her shoulder, and looked around at everything she'd created. This rough house in the Colorado wilderness was home. These people who'd accepted her were family. This work saving lives and helping neighbors was her calling. The Mercer family had sent her west to humiliate her, convinced she'd fail and come crawling back. Instead, she'd found something they'd never understood, that real value comes from what you do, not who you're born to be. That strength isn't about never struggling, but about getting up every time you're knocked down. That love isn't about perfection, but about choosing someone imperfect and building something real together anyway. Boston society had called her plain, unwanted, worthless. Colorado had looked past all that and seen what actually mattered. Her courage, her competence, her willingness to work hard and fight for what she believed in. She'd become exactly who she was meant to be. Not despite being sent away as a joke, but because of it. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever could have happened. Sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted means finding everything you actually needed. Evelyn Calloway, formerly Evelyn Mercer, the forgotten daughter, rocked her son and looked out the window at the mountains turning gold in the sunset. She'd found her place in the world, not the place anyone expected, but the right place, the only place. And that, she thought, was worth more than all the approval and acceptance her family could have ever given her.